Good to see
Hi,
you.
Patty. Hi, AJ. I'm
Hi, how are you?
humbled by your experiences in Hawaii.
Thank you. Thank you. It's definitely a lot of learning, that's for sure.
Sure, this is a tough time for you right now.
Yeah.
We appreciate you getting on the call and thinking about hydrogen in the midst of more pressing concerns.
You know, the crazy part is that it's just, there's so much stuff going on that I haven't had time to, I'll call it be sad. Just life doesn't stop. And it's just been, there's a lot of positive things going on. So despite all the tragedies and challenges, honestly, being able to be on a call like this and being around people that understand and are working towards something better for whatever that looks like, it just, it's nice to have a reprieve.
You can imagine. Yeah. Well, welcome.
Thank you. We're actually, and the interesting part was we actually, a week before we were supposed to have we set up a call with the governor of Hawaii because we were getting hydrogen pretty deep into Hawaii. So we just got Honda GenCell and Honda, two different hydrogen fuel cell manufacturers, to commit to supporting University of Hawaii Engineering School just said, yep, we'd love to start bringing in some of the fuel cells to do pilots and do workforce development. And we just put together a huge airport plan for Canada, and that we were working on for the US, but Canada kind of beat us to the punch and said, hey, would you guys give us a statement of capabilities for 40 hydrogen airports in Canada? So we submitted it. So I took this over to Hawaii and I'm like, hey, this is what we could be doing, because we're actually looking at a hydrogen airport in Hawaii, in Seattle, and Alaska, because of Alaska just signing with Zero Avia, Alaska Airlines just signing with Zero Avia for their hydrogen planes. So we were scheduling a call with the governor, and then all this chaos in Maui is just literally put everything on hold. I'm like, guys, let's just kind of put that on hold so, the people of Hawaii can recover and try to work towards, bringing some levity to the situation. But that's the other part. I was like, okay, that means now I gotta move what we're doing in Hawaii someplace else. So Alaska is definitely a big part of what we're looking towards.
Got it. Well, thank you. For those who have just joined, we're just informally catching up before we kick off our meeting. AJ Perkins is with us from Hawaii and has just been recounting some of the horrors and challenges there. And we're all glad to see him and are sending lots of thoughts your way.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from Hawaii on the call? Okay. All right. Well, let's see here. I'm just looking at my chat. We've got the AI assistant taking notes from Launch Alaska.
I just
Patty, isn't there a new policy from ASAP to not allow this?
for the University of Alaska, I'm going to go ahead and remove that, but we welcome any of the Launch Alaska folks.
Okay, so you can shut down the AI assistant?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. All right. Great. Well, it looks like we've got almost 30 folks on the call right now. Welcome, everyone. This is our fall kickoff meeting after a couple months off for the summer. I hope everyone had an excellent Labor Day weekend, if you celebrated that. And I hope it capped off an enjoyable summer before that. And if you were in Alaska, I hope you got out to play, and I hope you didn't let the weather stop you, or I hope it didn't get you down too much. And if you are in other parts of the country, I know that there's been lots of interesting weather events all over the country. So I hope everyone made it through the summer in reasonable fashion. I'm glad to be back in the fall months, although I will say with kids starting school and syncing that up with work routines, it's always a big adjustment. So it's great that folks have made time for this, and we will get back into this pattern of monthly meetings. All right. We always like to start off by inviting folks who haven't ever joined these meetings before, or who haven't ever introduced themselves before at these monthly working group meetings, to introduce themselves and let us know how we can contact you, so that you can become part of the conversations and we can add you to distribution listservs for this group and the like. So I am going to invite, I do see some new names, so I am going to invite anyone who hasn't been on the call before, or anyone who maybe has been on the call but hasn't introduced themselves, to let us know who you are and what your connection is to the hydrogen universe. And you are free to jump in at any time, or you can raise your hand and I'll call on you.
My name's Del Conrad. I'm the CEO of KI Energy, which is the subsidiary of Kinekatu, which is the native corporation based in Wasilla. We own lots of land, and part of that looks like it may be developing into ammonia production or things like that as a way to transport hydrogen. So that's kind of my interest.
Wonderful. Welcome, Del. And we invite you, if you care to put your contact information into the chat. Email would be great. That way we can make sure you're notified of future meetings, and then folks who have an interest or intersection with any of your activities can reach out to you and have further conversations. Molly Emerson.
Hi, my name is Molly Emerson. First time joining the working group here. I'm a Juneau resident and grew up here in Alaska. I currently work as a project development manager and director of development at an energy storage company down south called Plus Power. We're building utility scale energy storage projects connected to grids down in the lower 48. Currently, those projects are all lithium ion battery storage, but I have a personal interest in seeing where the energy storage market overlaps with hydrogen, and hopefully we'll gain some local connections through this group.
Wonderful. Thank you, Molly. And if we could encourage you to put your contact info in the chat if you'd like to, or just send it to Patty if you don't want to send it to everyone, that would be terrific. And thank you, Del, for putting your info in the chat. And Karen Pletnikoff, thank you for introducing yourself in the chat. Would you like to say anything to the group on camera? And if you don't, that's fine too.
Hi, I'm Karen Pletnikoff. I'm with the Aleutian Pribilof Islands Association. Our region is in the middle of the North Pacific Great Circle Route for transportation, and we have a lot of untapped or undertapped renewable energy resources. So we're interested in seeing the technology advance and get applied to larger scale projects, hopefully in our region.
Thank you, Karen. Let's see here. Do we have other introductions? Anne-Marie. I saw Anne-Marie unmute herself. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Hey, everyone. I'm the new Chief of Staff for the Arctic Energy Office. So working with Aaron Whitney, and it's so nice to see you all.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. We appreciate the introduction. I was going to call on Senator Kathy Giesel, but she just disappeared from her camera.
Hello.
Senator, go ahead, Tanaska.
Hi, sure. Chris Hemshot, Tanaska, VP in the development team. We're developing projects in the continental United States, and I'm curious about Alaska and wanted to learn more. And so We are a private energy company. We've been developing electric projects throughout the United States for 35 years, starting with combined cycle projects. We're now doing renewable projects throughout the US. We're now also moving into carbon sequestration projects, and just recently just started looking at electrolyzer projects. So wanted to hear what's going on up in Alaska.
Great. And please put your contact info as well as any information about your company
Sure, we'll
in the
do.
chat. That would be great. I see RJ McIntosh has put some information into the chat. RJ, would you like to say anything to the group?
Hi, Aaron. Hello, everybody. This is RJ McIntosh. I'm a prior Department of Energy Federal Scholar Fellow. I was assigned to what we call FEMP, the Federal Energy Management Program, where I spearheaded a couple of national efforts with our federal laboratories. And at the moment, stepping away from that role, I'm now consulting with the DOE FEMP in combination with 3 different DOE federal laboratories, the Pacific Northwest National Lab, Sandia National Lab, and Los Alamos National Lab in New Mexico, for a combination study effort of geothermal and combining it to hydrogen solutions as a long-term energy storage solution. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ, and welcome. Andrew Jensen, who a number of you may know already, but Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Aaron. Andrew Jensen, Governor's Office. For those of you, I guess, who might have, I think John Espindola was probably taking part in these meetings going back a while. So I've taken over the energy portfolio from him since his appointment to the RCA. So I appreciate the invite and just kind of looking forward to learning more today about all the work you guys are doing, as it's obviously a pretty huge part of people looking forward in the energy portfolio for Alaska.
Terrific. Thank you, Andrew. Senator Giesel, I don't know if I've seen you on this monthly meeting before, and I would love to get an introduction from you. And it looks like you've unmuted yourself. So thank you for joining us. Would you like to say anything?
Thanks, Aaron. Actually, I have been on a couple times. They've been super interesting. In fact, you had one not long ago, if I'm not mistaken, it was this group on what Australia is doing with hydrogen and marine transportation, which is what I'm interested in. Actually interested in all of the above in terms of energy. So thanks for holding these.
Terrific. Thank you very much for joining us. Do we have any other new faces or new introductions? This is a great time, since we've taken a few months off, if you've been shy in the past, to introduce yourself now. Daniel Halford.
Oh, hello, everyone. So I'm a new member with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. We're part of a new group trying to find natural geologic hydrogen all over the US on tribal land. We just started looking into Alaska and saw this group and thought we should join. There's a couple other colleagues that are in the group, but I don't see them today. But yeah, this looks like a great opportunity, and so nice to meet everyone.
Terrific. I can't help but ask, do we have some good geological hydrogen stores in our state, or are there hints of it?
The data it's not, it's very sparsely populated. There's a couple big bumps down in the south, but we're just trying to map the geology right now and kind of take what we've learned in other places in the US and translate that up to Alaska. Sorry, that wasn't a very good response.
No, it was enough to whet my appetite, though, that we might follow up with you for a presentation at a future meeting, because that sounds incredibly intriguing. That's probably not what you thought you were signing up for by introducing yourself. But thank you for joining us. Really interesting work and perspective there. So I hope there's more we can discuss at a later date. So thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Lee Bowling.
Hi, everyone. I haven't been here in a while, but I'm Lee Bowling with Kaufman Engineers. I'm based in Anchorage, but Kaufman is nationwide. And we work on a lot of energy storage systems, also hydrogen projects and CCUS as well. So just wanted to introduce myself and see a bunch of friendly faces online here. This is great. Thanks.
Thank you, Lee, and welcome. Do we have any new faces or new introductions? It's a friendly group, so don't feel shy. Thanks for the encouragement, Patty, and the thumbs up. For those who don't know Patty, she is the logistical mastermind behind all of these calls and maintains our listserv and sends out the announcements and basically keeps everything running. Tom Harris, I see your hand up.
Hi, folks. I'm Tom Harris. I'm the CEO for Kennecott, and let me introduce you to our newest project. That's the RIM building. It's the first CPACE program financed in the state. And we're with my associate, Dale Conrad, we are suppliers of the micro-combined heat and power systems that take the gas that you normally use to heat your building to also provide power for the building. So we call them nanogrids rather than microgrids. And we have about a dozen of them operating in South Central Alaska today, including schools, elder care units, and so forth. And yes, they can run on hydrogen. So we're looking forward to this discussion. As CEO for Kennecott, we also have the resources available to us from Anxelands in Houston, and those are the commonly known as the Castle Mountain Fault. And that's a very large concentration of coal bed methane, the highest concentration in South Central Alaska. And it is also a geothermal site. So we're excited about the potential of developing that to help meet the needs of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for your introduction in the chat there. Could I ask you to add your email address, if that's okay, in the chat as well, so we can contact you for further communications. I also, thank you. I also see Danae Powell. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Would you mind introducing yourself? And yes, you can say no.
I was trying to do it in the chat. My name is Danae Powell. I am currently with Pacific Northwest National Lab and the Energy and Environmental Directorate. And I also represent the National Conference for Standards Laboratories. I'm the current chair for their Energy and Renewable Metrology Committee. So I've stumbled across this group through Catrice at NIST and some other DOE partners on a couple SEPA groups. And so I wanted to join you guys and see what was going on. Since I was born and raised in Alaska, I have a lot of very deep roots there. So
thank you. It's wonderful to have you online. And before I highlight Audrey Ahlstrom and her joining our group, I just want to acknowledge the AI assistant note in the chat. Patty, could you say a little bit more about that in ACEP's policy and what you might do with that, please?
Oh, I'm going to remove just the AI note takers from the group. It's a university policy that we aren't to have those going during the meeting. So not a huge deal. I'm just going to go ahead and remove those. And that's just a heads up. Thanks.
Okay. And Patty does record the meetings, and we can send out action items as well from these meetings. But that is university policy there, and we can go into more detail about that if needed. Audrey Ahlstrom, do you care to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Audrey Ahlstrom. I'm the director of the Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency here at the Alaska Energy Authority. And I see Quinlan is on the line. He's our new assistant PM. He might be a new face to this group, but if he hasn't introduced himself, if he can introduce himself as well. Thank you.
All right, sorry, Quinlan, you've been outed.
Hi, I'm Quinlan. Like Audrey said, I'm a new face here at AA working on the renewables team.
Thank you very much.
Well,
It's
glad to be here.
great to see new faces and to have these new introductions. Bill Stam, you're not a new face, but I always love to hear from you.
Yeah, I was just sitting in the background, but I see so many new faces. I just thought I'd introduce myself. I'm the president and CEO of Alaska Village Electric Cooperative. We supply power to 58 rural communities around Alaska, 48 microgrids, primarily diesel generation. We do have wind and solar on our projects, and always interested in energy in any form, and primarily alternative energy, renewable sources, what we can do for long-term storage, those sorts of things. So hydrogen is pretty exciting, up and coming. Like to find out anything I can.
Thank you, Bill. And following Bill's example, is anyone else who's been on these meetings before similarly inspired to introduce themselves after this round of new introductions? You can put your hand up or you can just jump right in. It's a friendly crowd. Cord, your window is lit up. Did you want to say something? No. Okay.
Yep, just slow. I'm sorry I was a little bit late getting into the meeting.
Okay. Cord is calling in from Sitka, I believe. Dan Gasper from PNNL.
Yeah, hi, Dan Gasper, Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. I'm also detailed to the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Association. And so I'm helping them with their strategy and engagement, and been calling into these for probably a year now or thereabouts, and always find them interesting and glad to see some really robust participation today.
Terrific. We're almost up to 50 participants. AJ.
Thank you. AJ Perkins, born and raised in Hawaii and live both in Hawaii, Southern California, and my children live in Anchorage, Alaska. So we do energy projects. We have the sole source contract for all EV infrastructure at all the military bases around the country. We also have the sole source contract for the cybersecurity for all TSA stations across the country. And we are heavily involved with a lot of hydrogen infrastructure plays. We have a couple in Hawaii. We're working with University of Hawaii, some Native American tribes in California, and a couple throughout the US. And we recently just started getting involved with the Tabona tribe in Alaska, and we are creating a digital playbook for all 229 Native Alaskan tribes. So it's been really interesting for us. More recently, we submitted a statement of qualifications to build 40 hydrogen airports for Canada. So we'll see how that goes, but we'd love to keep it in the family and do what we want to do here instead. So thank you.
Great. And thank you, AJ, especially for joining us from Hawaii, where I know there's been a lot of challenges lately. So we're thinking about you. And of course, if there's anything we can do to help, please let us know. Any other inspired introductions from the crew since we're kicking off the fall here? Okay. I've given it an awkward moment of silence and no one has jumped in. So we are going to proceed with our agenda. We've got lots of great updates and a super exciting presentation from Masha Koleva from NREL today. And I think everyone's in for a treat. So after our new introductions, we try to do updates on some of our major topics. And this may also be a time to suggest, some other major threads that we want to focus on during this school year, academic calendar, September through June-ish timeframe. And we'll start with the areas that we do have, and then certainly open it up to some suggestions for other major threads that people may be following and that we want to add to our regular agenda. We have always touched on a possible Alaska-Iceland collaboration. I had heard through various sources that Iceland was keen for a partner for the Twin Cities applications, which is a DOE program. I don't have those dates off the top of my head, but that's something we could follow up on. It's about finding sister cities to go in on DOE funding for networking and building knowledge around hydrogen ecosystems. So I know we've talked about that in the past, and I just want to bring that up because I think it's relevant to this area of collaboration. We haven't had a specific lead on the Alaska-Iceland collaboration. We did have a presentation on the Iceland hydrogen scene. Are there any announcements regarding Iceland that I may not be aware of before we move on to the next major committee topic?
Erin, this is Patty Egan. I would love to connect with Aaron Cook, one of our partners over at now the NREL Alaska campus, formerly known as CCHRC. I know that he just got back from the fellowship in Iceland, and we could ask if there's anything hydrogen related. He did a nice presentation to the ASAP group, so I can follow up on that and let you know.
Terrific. Yes, and so to recap, Aaron Cook was an Arctic Energy Fellow sponsored by the Arctic Energy Office that I direct at the Department of Energy. Was over in Iceland for a few months studying a range of energy topics. He is an architect by training and certainly had an emphasis on some shelters and housing efficiency, but was looking at other topics as well. So that's a great pin on that point. Patty, I also want to bring folks' attention to the Twin Cities link in the chat. Thank you, Anne Marie. Applications are due October 19th. If any of this appeals to any of you, if the Twin Cities program appeals and you're interested in looking for Iceland partners, let us know if we can help you make those connections. We can reach out to the speaker that we had some months ago, or some of the other connections that we have. So that is there for your reference. Anything else on Iceland? Okay. And Anne Marie, awesome chief of staff that she is, has also put in a blog by Aaron Cook about his science fellowship there. So lots of material to keep you busy. The next thread is about the Alaska State Roadmap for hydrogen. And I have exciting news on that front. We have renamed it a Hydrogen Opportunities Report because there's a lot of different sort of paths that the state could take. And there's been a small group of us, me and some National Lab folks and Jeff Ron, who have been working up a draft that we will be able to circulate hopefully before the next meeting. It's in very good shape and we're going to be looking for your input. And I'm excited to share it with all of you and break it down and build it back up again. It is a reflection of the brainstorming meetings we had this spring where we were talking about production pathways and storage pathways and end use applications. It's taking all of those notes and making them coherent, looking at the regulatory and policy landscape and the notes we collected there, looking at workforce development considerations, looking at social considerations, looking at infrastructure and research and technology concerns, all those topics that we touched on this spring, and they've been bolstered by some great analysis by Masha and Levi at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. So excited about that, and we will be sharing it soon for input. So I promise I will keep you all posted on that front. Let's see here. The next topic is hydrogen fuel charging stations for the next Arctic Road Rally. And Tim, this is a good time, I think. Tim Leach, I'm addressing at Launch Alaska for those who do not know him. This might be a good time to ask if we want to continue this thread as a topic, because I know that that road rally has been postponed. It was going to happen this summer and it's now going to happen next summer. So maybe that's reason to keep it as a topic, but I'm going to give you the floor here to let us know anything around that project or any other projects related to hydrogen out of Launch Alaska in terms of directions you'd like to take this topic.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Yeah, Tim Leach, transportation lead, as Aaron mentioned, with Launch Alaska. My thought here, as you mentioned, since we don't have the road rally or did not have that road rally this summer, and we're actually doing EV technology demonstrations this winter, this coming winter, is to probably remove this particular agenda point from the standing agenda list anyway. We will be working on those EV technology demonstrations, and if we can integrate some alternative power, that would be great. AJ, you and I have touched base, and I see your hand again. Did you have a thought that joins there, AJ? Should I jump over to you or continue on and circle back to you?
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I'll say this just because as we talk about the road rally, first of all, GenCell is a manufacturer out of Israel that utilizes a 5 kW hydrogen fuel cell tied to 372 kWh battery and does EV fast charging. So their technology is coming to the US. We actually have a demonstration project already set up in Southern California, as well as Hawaii. They would be happy to bring this technology to Alaska. We just signed an agreement with University of Hawaii to also bring this technology specifically to the university so that they could create a workforce development training for the colleges for both the hydrogen fuel cell as well as for the EV charging. So that's one scenario. We could definitely bring that to the, to the Arctic Rally. We could also bring it to the EV charging scenario as well, if you'd like. But we also have Honda. Honda is now bringing their hydrogen technology in their vehicles and standing it up as stationary power for backup and prime power. We're helping them bring the technology to life. So there's two scenarios here. Number one, a actual generation scenario, but also the ability for conversions. So we're working with a couple of tribes to do EV conversions, and Honda is now giving us permission to bring hydrogen fuel cell conversions as well. So we could actually bring this technology specifically to the universities or other labs within Alaska to basically receive a fuel cell, play with it, and do certain things with it. So this could be something that we can start getting moved towards, the state in a very expeditious manner if we take advantage of it. So Honda and GenCell are two manufacturers that are very interested in helping us move this conversation forward. Whatever I can do to help.
Thank you, AJ. Yeah, I'll continue to do some offline conversations to see if there is a good fit with technology demonstrations of bringing in alternative power, hydrogen fueled if possible. Thank you, AJ.
You're welcome.
Aaron, with your permission, I see Cord's hand as well. I don't want to monopolize this time now.
That's great. Go ahead, Cord.
Yeah, I just wanted to add what AJ said on GenCell. We've had discussions with them. Not only does a 5 kW fuel cell work on hydrogen, but it also works on ammonia, where they can run it in either mode. And ammonia is a hydrogen carrier for those areas that can't handle the compression or the refrigeration costs and so forth of hydrogen. I just want everyone to be aware of that dual functionality, and it looks like a great company.
Thanks for that testimonial. Appreciate it, Cord. And for the follow-up, if anyone does have additional thoughts about technologies that could be used or demonstrated in tandem with what we've already got planned for those electric vehicle technology demonstrations, certainly feel free to follow up. I'll put my email address in the chat here momentarily. Related to hydrogen specifically, also wanted to briefly.
Oh, you just went on mute, Tim.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I also wanted to mention that we have the Clean Transportation Leadership Roundtable coming up next Wednesday in Anchorage, Alaska. That link in the chat will get you to the registration, and you can also see the agenda. The second half of the day is focused on hydrogen, both in terms of the supply, what would be needed here in terms of setting up supply in Alaska for hydrogen, and then also for demand, various use cases for aviation, marine, and ground transportation So you'll see a few folks on that agenda there coming from hydrogen maritime applications down in San Francisco, where there's a hydrogen ferry that's about to be commissioned. Zero Avia, of course, a name that might be familiar from one of our previous presentations here at the working group for aviation and the use case there. And then TTSI, who's done a lot of pilot projects with hydrogen and various other types of technology in the port environment, as well as one of the providers there. So that's it from me, but any questions, feel free to chat them, and I'll put my address in the chat as well.
Great, thank you, Tim. And so I'm understanding that we're going to take the road rally topic off of our regular meetings. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, but you always get great input, so we may just have to, well, you'll be on these meetings anyway, and you can always speak up. So
I'll chime in. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. JR or Craig, I don't know if you are on the meeting and want to say anything with regard to methanol engines. I know there's been various conversations on email. Let's see, I don't think I see JR or Craig on the call. Am I missing them? Okay.
I don't
we will
see
save, yeah, we will save that for a future meeting. Are there any other quick updates on interesting happenings or major areas of effort that we might consider taking up as themes for this year's round of meetings? And we want to keep these fairly quick so we have time for our presentation. So I'll just ask that please keep your comments brief. Bill, go ahead. Bill Lady? Bill, you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank
Okay.
you.
I'll be attending the Renewable Hydrogen Alliance meeting in Denver, in Portland on the 19th and 20th of September, with particular attention to the possibility of close rapprochement between the Green Corridor project, by which we would attempt to green the cruise ship industry in Southeast Alaska, and Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub, whatever comes of that, whether or not it's funded by DOE. If it's not funded by DOE, will it go forward with local resources? And can we help it green the cruise ship industry? Thank you.
Hey. So anyone else on this call that's involved with the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub, just out of curiosity?
Well, I think you heard that I am, right?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Okay. Bill, I'm going to, okay, yeah, you took your hand down. Great. Any other updates or announcements here before we get started on our presentation? Any questions for the group? Things that are niggling at your desk as you're thinking about hydrogen problems? Michael.
Hi, everybody. I know JR and Craig aren't here, but I've kind of been working with them on trying to work with the EPA on seeing what it's going to take to get an engine into the U.S.
Michael, can you just say your affiliation real quick, like first for the group, for our new faces?
I'm the Alaska Power Gen Sales Manager for Pacific Power Group. We represent MTU Rolls-Royce Power Systems, so engines, generators. A lot of what we do is custom generator sets for rural utility applications, and I'm working with JR and a couple other people to look at what it might take to get hydrogen carrier fuels to operate in reciprocating engines, potentially to allow, the diesel generator sets in some of these communities to be displaced by units that are powered by hydrogen carrier fuels such as ammonia or methanol. So I've been working with JR, and we did have one preliminary meeting with the EPA, and basically it's kind of a race to see, who, as far as manufacturers, might have a methanol fueled engine available to meet EPA emissions certifications versus whether we can import a Euro emissions certified unit into the US to, operate and test it utilizing the methanol fuel. And so that's kind of where we're at. And I think we are going to have a follow-up meeting with the EPA to kind of try to move forward to see, what we might have as far as waivers for, the importation of either a spark ignited or compression ignited unit that can run on methanol fuel to get it into a lab for testing and then move on from there. So not much development from what's happened since the last meeting, I guess.
Okay. Is your sense that we should keep this as a topic or maybe let it lay fallow for a bit, knowing that you're still working on it in the background?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can probably, tone it down a little bit.
Okay.
But JR may have more info when he's at the next meeting.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Any other developments or announcements or thrusts that people would like to see the group focus on as we start our new round of monthly meetings? Okay. Well, feel free to email me or Patty if you have suggestions after the fact or just didn't feel like suggesting them to the group, or put something in the chat, and we'll be thinking about this as we curate our future meetings. I'll also say that, we're always looking for interesting speakers for our feature presentation at these monthly meetings. So we'd love to have those suggestions as well. Okay, without further ado, we are going to get right into our presentation. And we have Mariya, who is known as Masha Koleva from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, also known as NREL. Masha's been helping on our Alaska Hydrogen Opportunities Report. And today she will be speaking on techno-economic analyses of renewable hydrogen systems in Alaska. Masha is a chemical engineering researcher 3 in hybrid energy systems division at NREL. So Masha, I am going to give the floor to you, and it looks like either you or Patty have posted your presentation and you are projecting, so take it away and we will have a lively discussion afterwards.
Thank you so much, Erin. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the opportunity to present as well in front of these very enthusiastic and knowledgeable people. So today I will talk about a techno-economic analysis of renewable hydrogen systems in Alaska. And if we do have some time, I would like to cover another interesting project that we are currently working on, looking at green steel and ammonia in the lower 48. So as an extra topic, but on the main one, I assume everyone is seeing my screen. Yep. So this topic of hydrogen analysis from renewables is part of a bigger one. It's coming from a project which is called Feasibility Study for Renewable Energy Technologies in Alaska Offshore Waters. And the hydrogen analysis was performed by a colleague of mine and myself. A little bit of background on that, that particular project. The primary focus, like I said, was the renewable energy development in Alaska from marine energies, essentially. And that included offshore wind, ocean wave, tidal sources. One question arose, and it is, what are we going to do with so much energy produced? And one possible answer is, well, we can see how we can produce hydrogen out of it as a clean fuel, and what sort of demands could be existing in the state, demands could be created in the state. And that project, essentially, the active part took part end of last year, beginning of this year, and we are wrapping up a report. So we're focusing on the hydrogen. Alaska has ample amount of resources. I assume we are all aware of that. And for the marine resources in particular, offshore wind plays a huge role. Here on the map, you can see the technical part.
So are you going to church anymore or no?
If you could please mute yourself, I'll be very, very grateful. Thank you. You can see that offshore wind predominates the Alaska marine energy resources, I'll say with 12,000 terawatt hour per year. Now, what does this mean for hydrogen? And by the way, here, this is delivered to you thanks to Levi. Levi, if you're on the call, thank you for the figure and the data. But what does this translate into when we talk about hydrogen? So the equivalent of all these resources is maximum hydrogen production potential of around 300 million metric tons of hydrogen if we take into consider the total. From offshore wind alone, the potential would be around 220 million metric tons of hydrogen per year. To put things into perspective, the US DOE's national targets from the Clean Hydrogen Roadmap target production of clean hydrogen of 50 million metric tons per year by 2050. So this means that offshore resources in Alaska could produce 6 times more of that potential demand for the entire United States. Now, hydrogen can be produced via many methods. There are 2 commercially existing methods. One is steam methane reforming, and the other one is electrolysis, especially with different greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. Producing hydrogen from electrolysis has become a major topic of discussion because electrolysis can be combined with renewable energy and produce clean hydrogen. For this study, we considered proton exchange membrane electrolysis because it's one of the most promising technologies. It is extremely flexible. It has a fast response. And also the capital investment costs for those technologies are on the trajectory of decreasing substantially and expected to increase even further in the next decade. So hydrogen production from electrolysis. We looked at 2 different use cases. You're seeing here 3 here, but in fact there were 2. And essentially, the difference between use case 1 and use case 2 is that in one of the cases, the electrolyzer is on the land, so it's not next to the it's not close to the offshore wind farm. And in the other case, it is located on a platform and it is closer to the offshore wind power generation. And what that could do is that could bring additional costing in terms of capital investment when it comes to securing these platforms where the electrolyzer can be located, say if we are at use case 2. But that would also cut on certain transmission losses, and the advantage of an electrolyzer onshore is precisely this cut of capital investment. And we're going to see how these trade-offs reflect the economics of hydrogen production. So after that, after the production, hydrogen goes to storage. There are various methods. In this particular study, we looked at compressed hydrogen storage and geological storage. And one of the locations has the potential for liquefaction simply because there is the demand for that, and I'll explain in a bit. The third case was something that we tested, essentially choosing of the electrolyzer when to operate based on renewable energy and based on grid power, assuming the grid is going to get cleaner in the recent years, and seeing essentially sort of price hedging, what is best for the electrolyzer to use to maximize its production and to take the minimum cost possible. And then we looked at as well fuel cell technology for producing electricity, but I will not discuss this case today. The methodology that we used for this analysis is using an optimization tool, revenue optimization and device operation. It's a mixed integer programming model with the objective to minimize the break-even cost of hydrogen. And it has the capability of optimizing the storage duration, doing parametric optimization for the hydrogen production size of the technology, as well as the renewable sizing, different revenues, trying different investment tax credits, and so on and so on. For this particular study, we added additional components to the tool. So we looked at 3 different locations. And the first one here we see the Lower Cook Inlet. Then on the right, we see Dutch Harbor. And then on the very right, we see Port of Nome. So for the first location and for the third location, we have 2 sub-locations. So altogether, we look at 5 specific locations, with most of them having floating offshore turbines. And the locations were chosen based on different wind speeds, different depths of positioning the turbines, and also seeing if fixed versus floating turbines would make a difference. So potential demand can occur at very different points. At this stage, I would say take this with a grain of salt. And here I would probably take the opportunity to invite you to connect, if possible, to see, according to you, where potential demand could occur. Also, another thing to consider is storage. Hydrogen could be stored in depleted oil and gas reservoirs. And here in this study, we take a very, preliminary example of like where potential storage could be anyway. So moving on further, part of the techno-economic analysis, defining the gross capacity factors and essentially the renewable profiles that are based on an hourly basis. Here you can just see a summary of what the gross capacity factors look like for the 5 locations from left to right: Dutch Harbor, the Lower Cook Inlet, in Kiski, in Homer, Port of Nome, the first location, and then the second location. You can see consistently they are pretty high. So around 60%. And I would say, so the yellow dots are the averages. And the bars are the essentially the minimums and the maximums. I would say they are pretty consistent throughout the year. The best average is Dutch Harbor, with no surprise. We assume 20% of total losses, especially when it comes to delivering the energy to the electrolyzer to onshore case scenario. Here are further techno-economic analyses, techno-economic assumptions. The capital investment, these costs were adjusted for Alaska markets. We break down the wind turbine capex with cabling costs, without cabling costs, to be able to understand what difference it will make to position the electrolyzer differently. I must say these costs are coming from the analysis from this project that was based on the offshore wind turbines. So what was an output from that analysis became an input to the hydrogen analysis. I must also say, so for the electrolyzer capex, we've assumed costs to sort of align with the HFTO targets, which are very optimistic. But this is just a case study, and the numbers could be changed, and they could be run differently through the optimization model. And for the Dutch harbor, we assume overground compressed hydrogen storage. There is no geologic storage nearby. For the rest of the locations, we consider the geologic storage as I previously discussed. Hydrogen demand assumptions. Going into those, here there are some caveats, and the first of all is demand is uncertain at this point. The level of information is not enough to obtain a reliable or a full picture. Therefore, we looked at 3 different scenarios that could essentially cover for uncertainty. And we also identified different potential markets where hydrogen could be developed in Alaska. And the first one is shipping fuel. So there is a report which is called the Potential Hydrogen Demand at Aleutian Islands Ports, and it takes into account precisely 3 scenarios: conservative, realistic sort of, and optimistic scenario. So we use the numbers from that report, where the maximum, the optimistic scenario almost reaches 500,000 metric tons of hydrogen per year. Hydrogen exports are seen as a very, very strong potential market. There are a lot of ifs associated with that, but where hydrogen could be exported to is Japan, Korea, and less likely Germany. But there is a slight potential there. Another possible market is the aviation fuel for sustainable aviation fuels. And hydrogen could represent different percentage for the production of that fuel. And here, for the different scenarios, we look at different percentages. For the ammonia market, there is a mothballed plant that essentially could use around 0.3 million metric tons of hydrogen per year, which is in the realistic scenario if that mothball plant becomes online again, and if it's going to produce the same amount of ammonia and the same amount of urea as it used to. Storage is very much tied to what the grid is and what the demand is. So I would say for estimation of the storage numbers, more analysis is needed, but this is just a back of envelope calculation. So these are our scenarios. And here we can see the results from this study. This is for use case 1 for offshore wind and onshore electrolysis. the system is a 1 gigawatt system. Commissioning year is 2035. So we are looking into the future. I must note that looking that far in future, most likely there will be no production tax credits available unless they are extended. That goal of $1 per 1 kilogram in 1 decade most likely may not be met in that way, so to say. But we can see levelized cost of hydrogen here plotted for the different locations, Dutch Carbon, Nikiski, Komar, NOM 1 and NOM 2 locations. And the levelized cost of hydrogen varies between $7 to about $11 per kilogram. And the biggest portion of the levelized cost of hydrogen is essentially due to the renewable capital and operating costs, or otherwise the levelized cost of energy. We noticed that the Dutch Carbon had the best renewable wind potential, but it does not necessarily guarantee us the lowest levelized cost of hydrogen. The reason is because there are other players that define that, and one of them, for example, is storage is expensive. And at that particular location, we said that we assumed that we could not store hydrogen in geologic storage. Also, another factor is we assume that most likely that will be the location where liquid hydrogen is going to be required for shipping applications. So liquefaction is also adding to the levelized cost of hydrogen. Just for understanding how an investment tax credit could play a role, even though it is not necessarily true that it may happen, it's uncertain that it may happen, but you can see the dots. They represent the levelized cost of hydrogen when the ITC is taken into account, and we expect another around $1 decrease if the hydrogen production tax credit continues being valid through projects that get commissioned in 2035. So when we compare offshore electrolyzer with onshore electrolyzer, things are getting pretty close. This is for the Dutch Harbor location, but we observe the same trend across all locations. And really, tables could be turned when assumptions are changed, when there is more hybridization of plants or tight coupling of plants. Things could really make a difference. So for the different locations, according to our modeling efforts, there is optimum storage duration. We see Dutch Harbor has the lowest duration of around 100 hours, and this is the only place where curtailment occurs. And the reason is simply because the storage is very expensive. And for the rest, we can see the numbers. Optimum storage is in the range of 300, 400, 500 hours. And going back into the demand scenarios, with these profiles and with this optimum annual production for hydrogen, we need a few times more of this production to be able to meet a realistic scenario from the demands. I must say, in the analysis for the tool, the supply and the demand were decoupled, and there were a few reasons for that. The first reason is because the sizing of the wind farms was fixed. So there was no point of optimizing for demand. Also, there is a lot of uncertainty on the annual demand requirement, annual not only, but the hourly demand requirement. So this is one potential for future research, and there are a lot others. For example, what hybridization would be best for what locations, looking at not only offshore but onshore production, coupling with other renewables, looking at estimating different storage locations, different production locations, and getting into more details of design that could change the economics a lot. So I will pause here. I don't know how we're doing with time and if folks would be interested in hearing about the green steel ammonia, or we can stop it there and have time for discussion.
Masha, it's about 12:33 right now. I think we have a few minutes to talk about green steel and ammonia, although we do have some questions on the material that you just presented. Would you like to stop and take those questions before we switch gear?
Absolutely, let's do that.
Okay, I will just jump in first, and then I'm going to read some questions from the chat. The rodeo model, is that only usable by researchers, or is that available for people to use? Can you speak to that at all?
Yes, rodeo is available for people to use. It is implemented in generic algebraic modeling system using optimization solvers. So as long as folks have the license, they can use the model freely. We can also provide with executable. I would say this model is extremely useful when it comes to combining grid with renewable energy sources. Yes, it is available. Please contact me. I'll be more than happy to share.
Okay, great. And then turning to the chat, first question was, is onshore wind possible too? And I would believe it is, but I'm wondering, maybe you could address that in the context of your study.
Thank you, Erin. Yes, you're absolutely right. It is possible. This project simply focused on offshore wind, and therefore it is a hydrogen production via offshore wind. But definitely onshore wind analysis would be very interesting to perform and to compare as well with offshore wind. So yes, it is possible.
Okay, great. And then there was a question from Marianne Pease about the existence of a technology to capitalize on direct air capture. Marianne, I see that Nathan Prisco chimed in that Santos has leased a direct air capture technology from Australia's CSIRO. Do you want more information on that, Marianne?
Yeah, I would appreciate some more information on that if anyone could respond to it. Thank you.
Okay. Did you want to say more about technologies to capitalize on direct air capture, Masha?
I would. So direct air capture for decarbonizing different fuels, decarbonizing the SMR. I guess I shouldn't answer with a question, but just asking like what. Where exactly is the interest?
Yeah, hey, this is Marianne again. I was looking at potentially if you could explain a little bit more of using direct air capture of hydrogen as kind of the process technology for the move towards more e-fuels.
So e-fuels are going to be produced with hydrogen and with CO2, and the direct air capture would come there essentially for capturing the carbon dioxide, and then hydrogen could be produced from renewables, and then this way like these two react, and then e-fuels are produced. That of course is not as simple. My understanding is that direct air capture currently is very expensive technology, and research has started looking into how to make it more affordable, because it's one of the technologies that is considered to be a player in future for e-fuels. I'm not sure if that answered the question.
Yes, it did. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Another question from Dan Gaspar at PNNL. Liquefaction costs seem very low compared to current state of the art. Can you speak to the assumptions that went into these costs?
Yes, so these costs were taken from HGR-SAM NREL2. They were actually, this was the only cost that was directly added to the levelized cost of hydrogen, because it comes as a levelized cost in there too.
Dan, is that a sufficient answer?
Yeah, so I know where she got him from then. I would note that's 2035, so that's probably assuming some learning reductions in cost, right? So, okay, so yep, all right, that works. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we have a question from Bill Lady. Have you considered the potential market for fueling Southeast Alaska cruise ships with hydroelectric sourced liquid hydrogen produced in Southeast Alaska at both in-service and now stranded hydroelectric resources? And I'm just going to chime in here. This was an offshore wind presentation, so I'm not sure that hydroelectric sources are relevant to this presentation, which doesn't mean they're not important. Would you concur with that answer, Masha?
Yeah, absolutely, Erin. And also, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't look at it.
Right. Right. Okay. Let's see here. There are projects at Dutch Harbor under review that would use geothermal energy. If this were to become available, would the combination of energy sources change the metrics to make the costs more attractive? Probably specifically related to Dutch Harbor.
Most likely, yes. What the combination of resources, say geothermal with offshore wind, is going to do is going to increase the capacity factor of the electrolyzer. So there's going to be more hydrogen produced. Like I said, for this particular location, the bottleneck is the storage. So if we look at not only increasing the capacity factors of the electrolyzer, but also looking at different storage methods, like for example, material-based storage could provide a lower cost, and therefore the matrix will change, I would assume, substantially.
Okay. Next question. With the high cost of storage and 100 hours, approximately 4 days storage duration at Dutch Harbor, why wasn't ammonia considered as a hydrogen carrier?
Good question. I guess it's just because it was not part of the study. It was not part of the study, yes. Bear in mind that for ammonia, like to be a carrier, we need to add additional investment costs for the Haber-Bosch process. This is also going to affect the economics. Also, as the demands were really for hydrogen, if we want to store as ammonia and then convert back to hydrogen, again, additional costing is going to be added. It's something that it is worth looking at, especially nowadays. It's considered that ammonia could be a transportation method, a storage method. It doesn't have the same boil-off problem as hydrogen. So analysis on converting to ammonia, from ammonia, I think is very much needed.
Okay, thank you. There's another question about electrolytic hydrogen from deep hot dry rock geothermal energy and whether that was considered. I think that it's similar to a question that was already asked about geothermal being considered. So I'm respectfully going to skip this one, but do encourage you to continue that discussion to the person who asked the question. And then we have a question here. what assumptions are made in the model about electricity costs? Does this change offshore wind electricity is generated in excess?
Electricity costs from the renewable or from, so because I ran a case as well with the grid electricity costs. I guess I would seek for clarification from Paul.
All right, the question asker is going to have to clarify the question.
Yeah, so I guess I'm just curious, sort of what sort of balance of plant electricity costs are assumed for the entire sort of levelized cost of hydrogen for those figures that you showed. If that's clarifying at all.
Is that is strictly for the renewable, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Balance of plan for the renewable, balance of plan for the electrolyzer?
So I guess both. If maybe another question can go ahead, and I'll try to clarify in the chat.
Okay.
I have the same question, I think, but it's I was going to phrase it in a different way, and you kind of alluded to this when you said that supply and demand might have a mismatch on the annual level, but there's also a great level of uncertainty on the hourly level. And I think what he's getting at is in a regime of sub-daily, on the hourly scale, overproduction of renewables, where the spot price of electricity is zero or negative. Did you see substantial reductions in the cost of hydrogen, considering the offsetting of grid-based storage that is otherwise not necessary, because now the hydrogen is there to soak up, to act as a heat coil or something? It's just extra demand. The value of the demand response.
Yes. So, and you're referring to grid, is that correct?
Sorry?
Are you referring here to grid, or are you referring still to only to the?
I'm referring to advanced renewable grids like Germany, where time of day pricing is the norm, and during times of overproduction, the price drops below zero on the regular.
I must say I did not that part was not a focus of the study. I used hourly grid prices from the rail belt, but from preliminary results, I could say that the model is not preferring pulling energy from the grid, because the levelized cost of electricity from the offshore wind is way cheaper.
Okay. Lee Bowling, it looks like you've got your hand up.
I do. Just a quick question. Masha, thanks for the presentation. I was curious, why is Homer cheaper than Nikiski on the levelized cost of the hydrogen? It looked to me like in that bar chart you had, it was just because of the renewable energy costs were a little bit lower. Yeah, right here. And I was trying to understand what, no, you were just on it. Yeah, I was just trying to understand why. Yeah, right here, it looks like it was the blue, so it's the renewable capital cost. Like why is the Homer a little bit cheaper than Nikiski? I don't know if you could just speak to that at all.
The capital cost of the wind turbine is lower for Homer. So keep in mind that Homer had a fixed bottom wind turbine, and these normally are cheaper. So this is the biggest driver.
Okay, because of the depth that you're dealing with.
Of the depth, exactly.
Okay, I missed that. Thanks for the clarification on that.
Thank you. You didn't miss anything. I just did not mention.
Okay, nice.
All right, and then I'm going to go to one more question here before we move on to your additional material. How did you evaluate demand for ammonia for the ammonia plant restart? Typically, only 5 to 10% of green hydrogen can be used. In older ammonia plants, 90 to 95% would need to be from gas feedstock.
So the way the demand, if I understand the question correctly, the way the demand for the ammonia plant was considered is the mothball plant capacity was 600,000 tons per year, if I am not mistaken, and essentially converting that to hydrogen. The ratio, as far as I remember correctly, is 178 kilograms of hydrogen per 1 ton of ammonia. So this is how the demand was derived. Considering the capacity of the mothball plant as it used to be, then converting that into how much of hydrogen feedstock would be needed for that, adding with the urea plant as well, because the urea plant also needs hydrogen, and then using conversion factors to calculate the hydrogen for that.
Okay, thank you. Nathan, if you want to follow up some more on that, I encourage you to contact Masha offline. All right, Masha, do you have stamina to do a little bit more about green steel and ammonia in the lower 48?
Yes, if folks are still with me, yes.
Okay, we've only got about 10 minutes left, so maybe this could be real brief then. Yes. Okay.
Yes,
thank you.
Absolutely. This is a super cool project. A lot of people on the team, and I'm just gonna go straight to it. For the last year, we've been in phase 1 of the project, which is general design of renewables to hydrogen to steel or ammonia plant. And phase 2 includes some details analysis, and phase 3 hopefully would be demonstration at our Flatirons campus, where we have a lot of existing hardware for renewables and for hydrogen production and storage. But the focus of the phase 1 study was to do, design and cost analysis, investigate how the integration of the renewables with the hydrogen at gigawatt scale could essentially result in an affordable hydrogen costing, compare those with the status quo, with the steam methane reforming, calculate any benefits from greenhouse gas emission reductions. So we looked at 3 different use cases configurations here: fossil hydrogen production, so steam methane reforming, but also we have a sub use case for this one, which adds carbon capture and storage. And how that affects the economics as well as the life cycle assessment of that system. Then the second use case is grid connected electrolysis, and we looked how the grid is going to change in terms of emissions in the future. And the third case, we used an integrated off-grid system and also some hybrids as well, grid so off-grid supplemented by the grid. Here I'm showing just the steel making icon, but this could be replaced with the ammonia production. And we wanted to see what the cost savings from potential advantages of off-grid tightly coupled systems are. So we looked at different locations. Initially, we started with 4 locations, then we added a 5th location. What you can see here, map of the lower 48 and different resources layered over on top of each other. We have the hydrogen potential from solar and from wind in blue. Then we have water scarcity that is in yellowish, and then different hydrogen current demand for synfuels, for metals, as in the black dots, and in the yellow dots, this is the hydrogen demand for ammonia production currently. It will be so good if I get this information for Alaska, by the way. So the different locations were chosen based on variety of different things. And I forgot to mention also, we have layered hard rocks and salt caverns. across to see where geologic storage would be possible. So we ended up with 5 locations: Iowa, Indiana, Texas, Mississippi, and Wyoming. And the delivered levelized cost of hydrogen in our best, better than all the rest, cream of the crop location, turns out to be Texas, and the year is 2030. This is, we looked at 2025, 2030, 2035. And it makes sense that the best is in 2030 because we would experience some cost reductions for the various capex components, as well as we're still getting credit. You can see the levelized cost of hydrogen for the different scenarios from left to right: steam methane reforming, then steam methane reforming with carbon capture and storage, grid only case, then in green, grid and wind, then next to it grid and wind, and we added solar to see what additional capacity factor would do to the levelized cost. Then we have a centralized case where essentially it's one huge wind plant with one huge electrolyzer plant, and then adding again solar and then battery for some electrical storage, and then on the very right distributed cases with offshore with wind only. In distributed, when we say distributed, this means like it's for the balance of plant, it's one wind turbine with one electrolyzer, with different, there are different policies associated with the levelized cost of hydrogen. With maximum policy, if you can stack everything that you could stack, you can claim those. This is the renewable production tax credit, ITC on the battery, on the PV, and on the hydrogen storage, and hydrogen production tax credit. You even can get to a negative levelized cost of hydrogen. I must say another thing, we see cost change a lot in the future years as well. We cannot claim any more incentives, but also we did some offshore wind analysis, and the costs are, I must say, higher. So,
Masha, if I can interrupt here, we've only got about 5 minutes left, and I want to have a time for a little bit of wrap up too. So
sounds good. Thank you so much. Then I'll stop. I'll wrap it up here. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer through email. Thank you.
Okay, and Masha, I will just ask real quick, like, what do you see the parallels for? I mean, do you actually envision steel production in Alaska? Is that what is the interest here? The parallels with Alaska for the steel part of your presentation.
So it very much depends. I think it's going to be great to have Alaska specific analysis for steel and ammonia production, to be able to say we do have the capability to do such analysis. It will be great to collect the data and to do it.
Okay. Do we have another question or two for Masha about the steel part of the presentation, or even the earlier part of the presentation? Okay, lots of great information here. Thank you so much, Masha, for this great analysis. We do have this presentation recorded. And I invite you all to follow up with Masha for, getting either copies of some of this analysis or for further questions. Yeah, there's a question here. Will you make your presentation available, Masha? Okay, so follow up with Patty about getting that distributed, and maybe we can even post it on our working group website as well. Are there any further announcements for the good of the group here? All right. With that, then I do want to just look ahead to our October meeting. I haven't even discussed this with Patty, but I'm going to put Patty on the spot. Do we have a date for our next meeting, Patty? Or
Yes.
are we still in discussion?
Nope. So we are looking at, we've been doing the first Tuesdays of the month and it seems to be working well for people. And so we're looking at Tuesday, October 3rd for our next monthly meeting. And this is tentative, but we are hoping to do a review and presentation of what Aaron was talking about earlier, the Alaska Hydrogen Opportunities Report that she and Masha and Levi and Jeff. So I'm sure you guys will go back into your committee and discuss that, but that's the goal for next month. Thanks.
Okay, and Patty, we may need to discuss that. I may have a conflict during that time on the 3rd, but we will make sure we get that information out to everyone in due time. With that, we are going to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Masha, for your presentation. Thank you to everyone for your participation and the great questions. We look forward to seeing you at our next monthly meeting. And please send inquiries, suggestions, speaker suggestions to me and or to Patty. And we look forward to a great season ahead and wish you all a wonderful week. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.